Yo, what is going on? And welcome to another episode of the Urban Pitch Podcast, a beautiful game of life, part of the Believe Network. I'm Ramsey Abushala, editor of UrbanPitch.com. Julio Monterosa and Bridget Flores back in the studio.
Back,
What's
baby.
going on, Bridget? It's been a minute. We missed you.
I was on a hiatus.
Yeah.
No, I had, whatever. Life is lifing or whatever.
Yeah.
But we're back, and we better because we have someone special today.
Very special, in person. We love our in-person guests. Very illustrious, award-winning host, content creator extraordinaire. You can find her on the Good Follow Show on the DraftKings Network. Megan Reyes. What's going on? Thank you so much for coming
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a long time in the making.
Yeah, we just had our last in-person guest. We kind of had this conversation too, where it's like you try to schedule things and flights and like Bridge even said, life is life. And so we're glad to finally have got you here and on the show. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, contrary to popular belief, I'm actually not yet based in LA. So it's hard to coordinate schedules and get myself here, but I'm super glad this worked out.
You said not yet though.
Not yet.
But plans are
okay. So admittedly, I had made a goal. It's on my phone. I had a goal to be in LA by August 2024. It is August 2024.
Only halfway through.
And I'm not yet here.
You got 2 weeks.
So that deadline, that goal is being pushed a little bit, but definitely want to be here next year before World Cup. Before Olympics. I'm here so much for work.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm flying in and out all the time. Like, I know LAX and Burbank way too closely and way too intimately. Unfortunately, but it will be home soon.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah.
It basically feels like you already live here.
I
so
act like I do.
You just got to make the move.
You fooled me. I'm like,
So let's talk about, get a background about you and yourself and your journey in sports, because it's been kind of a long path, a winding pathway, just how it is, for a lot of people in the space. But can you just talk about growing up, how you got into sports, what made you, want to get into the sports industry, and your how you gravitated towards soccer?
I don't know how long this podcast is. I'll try and keep it short. I'll try and keep it sweet. I grew up with an older brother. And so it was just my kuya and I. And in the Filipino community, like in the culture, kuya is your older brother. Yep. So he's 10 years older than me, and I wanted to do everything he did. So everything to this day that I love, hip-hop, sneakers, sports, I really attribute to him and that influence he had on me. So I played basketball growing up. I played softball. He was a baseball player. I grew up around the baseball field, wanted to be just like him. My athletic career ended around 6th grade, but I was a classically trained ballerina. So dance was my sport. And we still had a love for it in our household. When my parents moved from the Philippines, I moved to New Orleans. And so my brother and I were born there. To this day, he's still a diehard Saints fan. We grew up watching football. Sports were always on in the house. And I didn't know that a career was possible until I went to college. And I got an internship working for my university athletic department. And this was 2009, 2010. So seeing careers in sports like we can now on social media was just non-existent. Social media wasn't a thing. So I remember having to Google like sports marketing jobs to see what that even meant, because I didn't know it was possible until it was. And funny enough, one of my very first jobs in the industry was a summer internship with the Timbers in 2012, and I knew nothing about soccer at the time. It was such a wonderful club to work for, because this was a year after they went MLS, and as most people know, the soccer community and culture is so rich there, and I just had the coolest experience, but I never thought life was going to take me back to the game. Admittedly, at the time, I did the internship because it was a pro sports team and it was a summer internship, and it was really cool on my resume. Yeah, I just never thought life was going to take me back to soccer until, over the course of 10, 12 years working in NBA, working in sports media companies for video games and doing things from marketing to sales, and life kind of took me this way and that way, and I went from doing marketing and social media to somehow getting in front of the camera around 2020, 2021. Which again is something I never thought I would do. In college, I took a sports broadcasting class and I dropped it. after like 2 classes, because when I realized how much I was going to have to be on camera, I was sick to my stomach.
You're like, "It's not for me."
I was like, that is not for me. There's no way I could do that.
Today's episode is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. From the preseason NFL to college kicking off, Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our winner-take-all $300,000 NFL Survivor pool for the upcoming season. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slots games. Head to the website today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here.
So again, the way God works and life works is crazy, because to now be on camera covering soccer primarily full time is really not what 20-year-old me would have thought. But I really love it, and I think how I came into the game really was around 2020, 2021 when I started working for myself, and a lot of the opportunities I was receiving were in soccer. And now I'm so immersed in it that it's around me, right? Like everything, all the people I know, everything I consume. But if I take a step back and zoom out and really look back on it in hindsight, at that time the game was still really growing in the States. Like it still is, but we've had a boom over the last 4 years. So at the time there was such a need for creators and hosts and talent, and really any talent for that matter, working around the game. And I welcomed it with open arms, and the game welcomed me with open arms. And I had really started to become a fan very strongly around the 2019 Women's World Cup. And so I just have learned over the last few years, and also contrary to popular belief, I never played growing up, so I was very new to the game, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
That's I feel like I resonate a lot with you, because I have an older brother, and that's also why like everything I do and I love is because of him. But what was it that you like saw yourself doing when you grew up, if it wasn't like this? Like, where was your head at with that when you were younger?
Oh, I wanted to do a lot of things. I wanted to be a professional ballerina, and then I'm too short for that. And then when I realized like what their lifestyle consists of, just no thank you.
Yeah.
Seems like it hurts on the toes.
It does.
Always on your toes.
Exactly. And then at one point I wanted to work in fashion. I wanted to be a fashion designer. I was like very big in my Devil Wears Prada, and then also Lauren Conrad in the Hills like era of wanting to work in fashion. And that's actually what I went to school for originally. Was I wanted to work in fashion, but I can't draw. So I'm like, okay, well that's going to be an issue. So I'm gonna work in marketing and PR and kind of do the back end thing, sort of similar to what she did. And that's why I started studying marketing. And in my freshman Business 101 class, at the end of one lecture, my professor said, hey, for any of you marketing majors or anyone interested, the athletic department is looking for marketing interns. And curiosity and nosiness being one of my best traits and biggest downfalls is how I even ended up in the position in the first place. But I originally wanted to work in the world of fashion, which now also looking back on it also isn't really for me. I like the intersection of sport and fashion,
Right,
but
exactly.
being deep in that,
It's there's a lot of like terms and things, because I like fashion, but I'll watch like a fashion show and like I'll see people on the runway, and it's like reading a foreign language. Like I don't understand anything that's going on. It's way over my head, and like I have no valid opinion on what they do, you know? So it's like in my head, like I'm a plebe. Like I don't. It's just like, yeah, my opinion doesn't matter. But that looks kind of wild.
Yeah.
But so it's crazy to see. Like MLS is doing fashion shows, and
so cool,
like
Fits
you
of the
see the
week
fits,
and
fits of the week, like
footballer fits.
the like pregame runways that like Gotham FC, Angel City FC do, and the embrace of it. We've talked about it on the podcast about how NWSL and the WNBA like kind of embracing that like has led to a lot of more visibility to the league, and like you see it in the NBA as well and NFL. But just seeing that like become so embraced now is like really interesting and really cool to see.
And Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and I even just listening to you talk, actually, really, some things just clicked in my mind. On, again, how full circle and how everything just falls into place for a reason. Where I do very much appreciate and very much admire and value how much fashion has played a role in the growth of women's sports and soccer also. And I am very tapped into it and personally enjoy making that content as well, where maybe it was always meant for me to work in fashion, just not in the aspect that I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say, that like you mentioned, there's been a lot of growth in the sport of soccer in the last couple of years, and I think one of those intersections of it is the fashion and the fashion culture behind it, and like normalizing that you can look good and play good and be a baller and be a woman too. So I think you're, maybe if anything, like you were directed in the right place for that.
I think so too.
And you also
very
have good style too.
Oh,
so,
thank you.
you know, you carry it.
Thank you.
Because they're wearing 700 pants.
I know, she's saying that. She's really complimenting herself.
Yeah, that's what she's doing. She ain't slick.
Hey. Right? Exactly.
We're like a mirror right
I
now.
almost
Like,
put
is
my
that-
hair up in a bun too.
It's a Spider-Man meme.
Yeah. The spider.
You see, this is finally a moment I get to have, because they always have their little moments together, and I'm just here like.
It's all about Lil Wayne music. That's what it's all
Yeah,
about.
I know. Yeah. That anytime.
Kanye and Lil Wayne. That's what we talk about.
Yeah, we'll get into like just hard right turns, and then Bridget will
Oh.
just like sit there and just be like,
I
"What
love
are
it.
you guys talking about?" Like,
Yeah, they have
so
their
it's
moments.
nice. I mean, it's nice for you to have your moments too.
Right.
So.
We do this for you,
Exactly.
Bridget.
Yeah.
This is why I came back today.
Right. Yeah. Last week she said, she took a
I
look
was like,
at the notes.
nah.
She's like, "Nah, I'll skip this one." Like, I'll say,
Next.
yeah.
They got
My time is a little too
Hey,
valuable.
blame the
yeah.
Leagues Cup. Blame the Leagues
Leagues.
Cup.
Yeah.
That'll do
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
I want to talk about your Filipino background, because it took you maybe like a few minutes to drop Kuya on the podcast, and this is a big one because I'm half Filipino, and we've had he's Salvadoran and she's Mexican. We've had Mexican and Salvadoran guests and Mexican/Salvadoran guests on the show. You're the first, to my knowledge, Filipino guest
Really?
on the pod. So just want to shout out the Filipino community in LA
Woo-woo.
and all that. But one thing that I noticed from your coverages, especially for the recent Olympics, you were very much covering and putting a spotlight on the Filipino Olympians. Won a couple medals. But can you talk about your experience growing up Filipino? The pride, because I know it's like every ethnicity has there's a national pride when you see, when it comes to the Olympics or boxing or like these individual events that where nationality is a big thing. But what was your experience like growing up Filipino and seeing like more and more like the athletic side, because the basketball teams is going up. We had the gymnastics, like it's going crazy. So what, like, can you just talk about that and go into that a little bit?
Yeah, my relationship with my Filipino identity has been really, it's been how do I say this? It's been a work in progress. Both my parents were born and raised in the Philippines, so both my parents are immigrants. They moved to the U.S. in the early 80s. So I was born here, I'm first generation American, and I grew up in northern Idaho. I grew up in a very small white town. And so I never truthfully thought much of my Filipino heritage. I knew my parents also raised me in a Filipino household. They speak Tagalog at home. I unfortunately don't know it. I didn't learn it as a child.
I feel your pain. Yeah.
And my parents and I have we've had
Or growing pains.
disagreements on why I don't speak Tagalog. I die on the hill that as a child, I shouldn't have had a choice as to what language I was taught. And they say that they tried to teach me and I didn't want to learn, and I was stubborn and didn't want to learn. But I'm like, well, what choice would I have had if you were just going to speak to me in Tagalog? Anyways, I digress. I don't know Tagalog, but we ate the food. My parents cooked it a lot. However, it was just, there wasn't a lot of us around. And I grew up not around other people that looked like me. And I never really thought much of it until 2014. I moved to California, moved to the Bay Area where there's a lot of Filipinos, and started to understand that even like a little bit of the quirks and the stereotypes and the things that my parents do, or way words are pronounced or the way I carry myself or even the little things like picking things up with my feet. I didn't even realize were such
pointing with your mouth.
Pointing with my mouth. I didn't realize we're just commonalities in the culture because I didn't grow up around a lot of people. But where I really started to have a stronger sense of pride has been in truthfully recent years as I've started to explore what my identity has meant and had conversations with other, not only Filipinos and children of immigrants, but children of immigrants from other ethnicities and other backgrounds, and understanding the shared struggle and journey that a lot of us have, and understanding which way do I lean, and do I lean either way, or am I happy in the middle? And gosh, I guess it's been about 1.5 years now where I think it really came together for me was when I started my projects around soccer in the Philippines, and the conversations I've had with Filipinos who work in the game, Filipinos who play in the game, and then Filipinos in the Philippines and the homegrown talent. And where it really finally clicked actually was when I visited the Philippines, which was just in April, and I went for 3 weeks, and it was my first time, and I say this all the time, but I've never felt more at home in a place that I've never been to before. I miss it every day, and I think about it all the time. But as the more I've had these conversations and learned from others and have helped others learn as well, the more and more my pride grows. Yeah. And so even the conversations I've had with either the Olympians who represented the Philippines or the Filipino-American Olympians who have represented the United States, and some have had a very strong sense of their and strong sense of identity and strong understanding of self, and others maybe still a little bit curious and are learning. And I've learned from them, and I like to think they've learned from me. And again, it's really fun to see people grow and learn to love their Filipino self, because I am still also in that process. But it brings me a lot of pride. Those conversations and interviews I have with Filipino athletes are truly a labor of love. The podcast I did about the Filipino soccer team, or the Filipino women's national team during the World Cup, labor of love. The documentary I'm making, like all of this, even from a business acumen standpoint, I don't make money off of any of this. Hopefully one day, but
eventually
we feel you.
Yeah, like what is money?
Give me the change.
I need TikTok.
Yeah, I need the money. Give me the money.
But it's all just like, I love it so much, and it just brings me so much pride, and I've just learned so much. But yeah, I think those conversations have been some of my favorite, and again, I'm not getting anything out of it except just the joy I have, and even like with Filipinos, it's like I find someone that's half, and I'm like, you, and I immediately start looking up with their manager's email, their email, how can I get in contact with you, because I have to have a conversation with you.
That's really dope.
No, but and that like it's not only like it hits me inside, because I grew up in Crenshaw, Slauson. So growing up, I was probably one of the few brown kids in our neighborhood. So growing up, same thing. Right now, I'm the biggest Salvadorian. These people know, like, I rep El Salvador to the beginning.
Right now.
The jersey right now. But growing up, I thought being super Hispanic was not cool.
Yeah.
And it didn't get to when I got to college, played collegiate in Arizona. It was close to the Mexican border. How people really love, like, they were Mexican. We were like 15 minutes away from Mexico. And I was like, no, I'm super Salvadorian. And then, like, seeing, like, the culture of my parents as well, they point with their mouths. It's a Salvadorian thing. So, like, growing up now, like, I make research. I haven't been to El Salvador since 2006, but I'm planning to go at the end of this year to, like, literally, I don't want to go to my parents' town, which my family hates that about me, but I just want to go to tourists. I really just want to know the country and just explore it and see, like, how amazing our ruins, our country. A lot has been talking about the president right now, so just see how beautiful the country is now that I'm older and I can enjoy it, opposed to my dad having to take me everywhere.
Yeah.
That's why I'm really grateful the way I was able to experience the Philippines as an adult in my 30s. I got to go. I went with my partner. We got to travel. I didn't get to see my dad's hometown because he's from a completely different province. She actually doesn't know this, drove by where my mom grew up, and it's now like a government building. But we didn't really spend time where they're from, and we only were able to meet up with one of her family members. But it was really an experience other than visiting all the different clubs and learning about the football scene there. It was really just to experience all the other aspects of the Philippines and see it for myself, rather than I much prefer the way this went about than if I had gone as a kid and, like you said, my parents taking me everywhere, and a lot of it would have probably ended up going to family members at home.
Yeah, you like it was vaguely remember that anyway.
Exactly. It would have been a different experience.
I went in when I was 9 years old with my mom, and we went to go see. I don't know how's in your family, but I couldn't name all my cousins on my mom's side because it's like she has like 7 siblings. Yeah. They all have like 6 or 7 kids. Like I was meeting so many people and I was exhausted. Yeah. Like I was just going from house to house, and like I was like, Mom, like what are we doing? Like can we just go home? Like I like it was we were there for a whole month too, and so it was amazing. It was eye-opening, and it made me feel a lot more connected to like who I was as much as a 9-year-old could get. But I would love to. That's the same thing. My mom, she goes back every once in a while. I haven't had the chance to go back with her, but I just feel like having that experience as an adult is just completely different as from a kid where you're kind of a brat, like you don't really have the capacity to appreciate like all this. Like even like we were staying at my mom's dad's, like it was like an apartment complex, and I hated it so much. Like I was like would wake up like upset every single day. I was just like, it was hot, it was humid, like there's no AC. So like I feel like now so like I was very ungrateful, and as a kid is, but going back is something that I think is something that's definitely on the to-do list.
And even if you didn't get to like grow up with the culture, I feel like you said, you instinctively already had some of the culture embedded in you. And now as an adult, you get to really put that together and see like what it means more than just what you're doing. And I think there's like this Spanish saying, it goes like ni de aquí ni de allá. It's like I'm neither from there nor here. And it's kind of just that it's like saying like I'm here, I was born here, but I also have roots somewhere else. And like I think you getting to explore both sides is really giving you more of a sense of identity of who you are. And it's, I think for me, like that's something that's important to me, is to be able to experience both and like understand both, because it is who we are. It is what makes us. And some people are rooted in one side or the other, which is completely fine, but it's a whole other experience when you get to witness it and see it for yourself, especially as an adult. Yeah. And you just like appreciate it a little bit more.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
I would love to stay at my family's house, but all-inclusive sounds way better.
That's not going to be all-inclusive.
Hey,
it's going to be like more like all the questions.
Cool, all-inclusive right here next to the beach. Yeah.
Y'all can come.
I'll see you when I see you.
Yeah, I recently had that experience where, because we would go, my family's from Mexico, and we would go, once my parents got their papers, we were able to go visit. And then as I started to get older, I'm like, all right, y'all, like, I love our family. Like, let's go say hi. But also, like,
we got an Airbnb here.
Can we go somewhere? Like, can we go hang out at the beach, like, 4 hours away or something? So I've gotten to explore other sides of Mexico recently, and I'm just like really appreciating just even more of like the country.
Julio and I got the vicarious experience from the Instagram.
Yeah.
The close friend stories were going off. She was going off. Yeah.
She went to the church. It was a club. It was a
couldn't tell what was what.
There was a priest giving you shots. I'm like, what is going on, Mexico?
It's a whole nother world. It's a whole nother world. I'll say that. Day and night.
The church of the perreo. I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah, I recommend Mexico City. 10 out of 10 recommend it.
Good to know.
The food and the vibes, everything is there, and the sport and everything. Good to know.
Yeah, all that.
That stuff is cool. So you mentioned talking to you did the whole podcast on the Philippine women's football team, which is amazing. You spoke to some of the Olympians was it on the Good Follow show, right?
It was separate. It was just like
okay,
for fun.
gotcha. When you see what are some of the like biggest tidbits or like gems that you've gotten from the Filipino athletes, not just from like a like experience side or like athletic side, but just from like the Filipino like because when you talk to somebody that has the same background as you, there's already the connection there. Like, did you feel that even more so when you're doing an interview for a show, or like how did that dynamic work?
Yes, and I think so. I look at it in two layers and like two answers to this. One, I noticed that the conversation tended to be much more free flowing when the person had been to the Philippines. Because then we could also talk about, like, especially once I went, which was only like 4 months ago, but I've done a lot of interviews since then, because there was a shared, what was your first experience like? And now I can also, like, I have the context of where they went because I was able to experience that for myself. There were some interviews where you could tell that they maybe were still exploring or had not yet really explored, and maybe were honestly even a little bit uncomfortable sharing a little bit about that side. But in that sense, I liked to be a little bit of the mirror and ask the questions that maybe got them thinking about things they hadn't really thought about. But I think the biggest thing I really took away, especially when I was talking to members of the women's national team, I guess this would have been before the World Cup, is that they never thought twice about it. And so if I ask them a similar question as far as, because some of them are either second generation or even third generation, and if I ask them, you know, what were your experiences like growing up? What was your relationship like with your Filipino identity? A lot of them were like, honestly, I never really thought much about it. You know, maybe my mom was white or maybe my dad was white, but they did such a great job as raising me as both and helping me understand I am also this and I am also this, and I am happy being both. And I almost feel like those that were of second and third generation had a better sense of that than maybe the first generation kids. I don't know if that has something to do with there's a little bit more of a separation between, like for my parents, it's like, well, we came here and we experienced this, we grew up with this, we didn't have what you have growing up, and maybe there's a little bit more of a separation where it was easier for them to understand. But I almost felt like I learned a lot from them because they were like, yeah, like I grew up content being maybe part white and part Filipino, and I never really thought much about it. I just knew I was both and I was proud. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that must be so nice.
You didn't struggle at all.
Yeah, so you didn't struggle one bit?
You don't think about it at
You
night?
never really thought about it? You never felt like you didn't fit in? Like, oh, okay.
Just questioning your whole existence now?
Exactly, but
Just
I
me?
think that was the biggest thing I learned, is that they were just like, yeah, I'm both, and I'm really proud of it. And also just the sense, I think, both from the World Cup team and the Olympians, just the sense of pride, I think, is probably my favorite thing, where even those that are second generation, third generation, not that that should matter, but where someone may think they're American and they only have X% Filipino, which is also one of my biggest pet peeves, where people try and argue like, well, you're only X% therefore, or even for myself, I'm like, I have 100% Filipino blood, but because I grew up in the States, a lot of Filipinos may think like, well, you're not Filipino. I'm not even going to go there, but that's one of my biggest pet peeves. But the sense of pride that a lot of these athletes have for representing their country, or even the choice, that's the coolest thing that I think professional athletes have when it comes to soccer, when it comes to the Olympics, when it comes to representing a country, is the choice that a lot of people have. And in our culture, the choice that they made to represent the Philippines is so cool.
Yeah, and you're seeing it with a lot of different teams and a lot of athletes, especially like being how diverse the United States is. You see Mexican national team have a lot of American-born players. El Salvador having a few American-born players, especially in the women's sports. Mexico having a lot of players that played college here. They are going back to Mexico to play, and it's great because even though this is a hub for all of us, and it gave all our parents opportunities for us to do what we're doing right now. So it's a great scene, that, especially because I experienced with the younger generation as well. They're proud. They're way more proud. Like, I remember hiding it, and I'm like, they're all out. Like, they're posting on their social media, whatever country they're from, they have it all laid out. So it's amazing to see at this time.
And then you also see from a Filipino's perspective, but also across the board, like more like national teams, like marketing to American players. Like, I grew up playing baseball, and my brother's college coach is actually the head coach of the Philippine national baseball team.
Oh, that's so cool.
And like 4 or 5 years after I graduated college and I had not been playing, he reached out to me and was like, hey, you and your brother need to come try out for this team. And I was like, man, if this, like, I was washed at that point. Like, at that point, like, there's no way I was coming back. Like, I was completely, like.
You went to go look at your bat, it had dust on it?
Yeah, you know, like, I got a layer of calcium. I got a layer of calcium all over my, you know, my joints. And I was like, yo, man, if this was, like, even, like, 2 or 3 years before, like, you know, where I still kind of had, you know, some semblance of like, muscle memory towards it, like, that would have been the coolest thing. But, so selfishly, I'm kind of upset that now it's starting to grow. But I mean, for the kids that grew up, you know, in LA specifically, because there's a you know, pretty vibrant and thriving Filipino community, like, for them to get that opportunity to play. And now, like, kids that went to my high school are playing on the Philippine national baseball team, like the Pierce College, which is the college my brother played at. They, you know, they're the home field for, you know, so it's really cool to see. Even as, like, you know, quote unquote old head, like, looking back at it, you still feel a little bit salty. But like,
You also started your goalie career 3 years ago.
That's true.
So you know, you gotta give yourself some credit.
You don't want to go back spending like Ben Gay.
Oh,
bro.
no, I'm not talking about. I'm talking about baseball, not soccer.
No, baseball.
No, I know.
Oh,
but
yeah.
You were a goalie at the base.
Yeah. So at that point,
playing
I was a transition sports. I made a late shift into.
It was a keeper.
Yeah.
We played in like a league all together, like an adult league.
Is he any good?
He was one of the goalies. We would score on him all the time.
Hey man, the second they started pressuring me, I would make bad decisions. Like, I have the wingspan of the goal, so if I just, like, kind of,
and it was literally because it was like what 5v5, and the goal, it was literally as tall and long as
so as long as I'm in the right position, like, it takes very little skill for that. So that I made myself useful in that sense. But in terms of, like, the more modern, like, sweeper keeper type player, like, no.
I saw Ramsey. I was like, oh, my stats are going up.
Hey, weirdly, I never really played against you because I was in the co-ed league. I wasn't playing in the men's league.
They didn't allow me to play in the co-ed league. Gotta learn how to behave. Yeah. Next topic.
On to the next.
Yeah. So a lot of what you cover and what you talk about is, you know, women's sports and the best in women's sports. Talking to different athletes, both you know, current, former, people involved around the game, like that aren't necessarily players but are still involved in it. You mentioned the growth of soccer and what you've seen since you started covering it, working on your own in 2020. Women's sports across the board has taken off. You know, a lot of the stuff in the NWSL is super promising. We have another women's league debuting this weekend. Stuff with the WNBA. Like, you know, people are talking about women's sports in, like, from a sports context, which is, like, something like people are arguing about Angel Reese's double doubles and, like, the validity of them instead of, you know, like, what some of the other, like, crap that they were talking about before. So now you're starting to see that, like, kind of legitimize. What are some of the things that you've noticed covering the sport since you started and till now?
I think the coolest thing that I've seen is, as we all know, and let's look at it from the context of women's soccer, is the talent has always been there, and the excitement has always been there. And so to see other people learn that and experience it for themselves has been the coolest thing. And then, of course, like, with the growth comes money, all of that. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I took my partner to his first Angel City game and he had the best time. I took my best friend who, and I think this was the coolest thing. She grew up playing soccer and stopped after high school. And I took her and her husband to an Angel City game, and then I took her to Bay FC's home opener because we live in Sacramento, so it was close. And she has told me that since I've started working in the sport, it's helped her renew her love for soccer. Because as a lot of people who grew up playing sports, for some reason, for one or more reasons, you probably ended up leaving the sport you played with some sort of resentment towards it. Not always, but usually. Yeah. And for her, she left soccer not necessarily loving it anymore. But she's gotten so into it, and now her and her husband, like, they've started going to games without me sometimes. But to see people have those experiences for the first time have been really cool. And to see them, like you said, experience it and talk about it in the same way we would talk about men's sports. And to see... Well, some of the Caitlin Clark and Angela Reese discourse has been very irritating, but to see it actually being discussed and not just on the surface level,
Torn
but actually
down.
really
Yeah.
talking about the game
Right.
and what we're seeing on the court or on the field has been really cool. But my favorite part is just, seeing people really get into it and want to experience it. And I've had people reach out, especially all the friends I have here who are like, I want to go to an Angel City game, or I want to experience this too. Has been really fun, and I'm really excited about the Super League starting.
Yeah.
I definitely want to go to one of those games, and I just hope that people continue to, how do I say this, to invest in it in the right way.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that because I think their original plan for the USL was to have like a second division, a tier 2 league, but now with them at a tier 1 level, like pretty much competing with NWSL, what do you think that is going to bring to the overall like landscape of women's soccer?
And there was a rumor that MLS is thinking about bringing a
and
women's
then
league.
and then like
so MLS
I don't
joining-
know I don't know how true those
The-
rumors
yeah,
were. I've
but-
heard like both sides of it being true and being not
Not
true,
true.
but it seems like a good thing, right? Because we talked about this when it was first announced. Like, it's definitely great to have more teams and more competition, and now NWSL has something to look over its shoulder towards. So what are your thoughts on the new league coming and what it will bring to women's soccer in the States?
Well, I definitely want to hear what you all think too.
Yeah.
But I think it's really exciting, especially similar to WNBA. While NWSL is a bigger league and respectfully it has a more willingness to expand than the WNBA, there still are only so many roster spots.
Yeah.
And so to have a new league with more teams, it's really cool to see these women have more opportunities. And I think even the fact where you look at the roster and you see how many of these athletes have formerly played for NWSL teams kind of proves
right.
that there's a need for more teams. I'm excited for them to get their shot again, especially because a lot of these players were playing overseas, but now they get to stay home and play here in the States and have an opportunity that wasn't available to them prior. So I am very excited to see how this goes, and I hope that they have the success that they deserve. I also saw the rumors about MLS, and then I also think that post was deleted, which is also interesting to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that means. And should there be a third league added? Now I start to have mixed feelings about it, because I personally would rather see the investment put into the leagues that currently exist
Right.
than
Build that.
instead of now adding multiple leagues,
Yeah.
because also like where was the investment and the interest
Sure.
Right.
prior?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
Then
leave
it
that
starts to get
vague,
messy.
but like why wasn't there, I don't know.
Yeah. And I think
I don't know. I'm gonna digress a little bit there.
Yeah. No, I see what where you're going, but I think with NWSL, I mean, 14 teams, and shout out to their growth, because they have really added a lot more teams in the last few seasons. But 14, there's still a lot more room, and I think adding 8 teams, and then I don't know how many the next year they're gonna add again.
Seoul is coming in.
Yeah, Seoul,
They've been
there's
doing like
Jacksonville
2 at a
team.
time. Wait,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
NWSL?
No, for the USL
Oh,
Super
Super
League.
League?
League?
Yeah, I think.
They're starting out with 8,
or
and they're
4.
adding like 4 or 5 more the next year. I don't remember the exact number, but I think it's smart for them to attack it from a Division 1 or a first tier level, because people are saying, oh, how can there be another Division 1 when there's no Division 2? But I mean, like, Division 2, second division, like, you're automatically putting a roof on yourself, because the system isn't open like it is in Europe, where there is room to advance and to break through into the first into the top division. And USL knows it better than anyone, because they're right there. You're so, like, there probably is a need for a second division league, but that limits the growth and the potential for the teams themselves if they can't advance to the top league. So I think from a business standpoint, it makes a lot more sense, especially with no promotion or relegation. And there's definitely enough room for there to be more Division 1 teams. And if this leads to, I think best case scenario, maybe there's a merger and, it goes really well, and we have, a 22, 25, 30 team league that's, with consistent attendance, really cool jerseys, you know, like a lot of marketing, a lot of, you know, investment into it. So at first when I heard them like say, oh, we're actually not going to be Division II, we're going to be Division I, it you know, there's a little bit of concern, but then the more I thought about it, the more like, and you know, we had an episode a few months back when the first announcement was made. Like, you just think about it, like, yeah, Division II is nice if you can get into Division I, but that's just not the current system and the way it's set up.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
No, definitely. Like, but I feel like going back to the MLS, yeah, I think it'll be great because you see a PSG create a women's team, like the resources. Now they have the same resource PSG has. They probably will.
Barcelona.
Yeah, Barcelona. They probably don't share the same training because we had Destiny here saying in Mexico that even though they're the same team, like they go practice with the academy team, but at the end of the day, they still get a chance to be around the facility, and it works wonder for having a pro athlete having high level doctors or whatever it may be to take care of these players. So on that sense, I think it would be a great idea to have like LAFC women or whatever the team name will be, just because of the resources that will bring for them. Like there'll be a little bit more money, there will be a better established league that's been there for a while that can back them up with a little bit more financially. So that's great. To Ramsey's point, having two leagues that are first division is great because it gives more opportunity to these women. We're losing a lot of talent to different leagues when we can just bring them in house. We have a lot of the NCAA has been working wonders for women games, so keeping those athletes opposed to sending them somewhere else, it's always great. It gives us a bigger pool, gives our national team to be back where they belong. We've had a few tournaments where we've been upset, staying up for the World Cup, talking trash to each other at 2 in the morning.
Oh
My God.
Women's World Cup, that was a year ago.
With one eye open.
Yeah.
I remember I was in bed, like, they were just, like, arguing. I'm just like, guys, I could barely keep up with the game.
Yeah, so definitely
I remember one of the games I had, it was one of the Philippine games. I kept snoozing an alarm every 15 minutes so that I would, like, not sleep through it. So I'm like, wake up.
That was me recently with the Euros. I was watching I think it was the Spain, no, not the Spain final, the semi to advance to the final. And I was, and I think you were texting as well in the chat. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I was in bed and I'd go to sleep and I would just hear
It was 2
the
p.m.,
commentator.
That was like 11 a.m.
There was one that was like 8 a.m. There was an 8 a.m. one for sure. There was for sure an 8 a.m. one. I remember. It was like a Saturday. The Copa Americas I was awake for. The Euros, I don't wake up.
The sun was out, like for sure.
The sun was definitely
It was
out.
definitely like 9 a.m. on a Saturday.
Okay,
and
but
I'm like, listen, I'm not going to wake up early. I'm not going to wake up early for that.
Fair.
But
That's
still,
fair.
like,
That's fair. I thought it was
listen,
like 4 a.m.
you know what? Sometimes I like to sleep in when I can. I'm not going to be outside.
Yeah, we all agree.
I did this last Saturday for the women's national team gold medal match.
Oh,
I had
yeah.
my phone on my pillow and it was 8 a.m.
It was an 8 a.m. That's
Yeah.
pretty.
And so
that's
I
pretty-
It's also just been a lot of soccer, like back
So
to
much.
back. Like, not
It's
even
been
the
awesome,
timing.
but,
It's
like,
been great. I love
I'm
it.
tired.
Yeah, for the Olympics, only watched one game was the USA against Morocco. Then we got smacked. I'm like, forget this Olympics. I'm out.
Yeah, no,
I'm out.
I think
Checked out.
I did
Yeah.
highlights
Checked
for
out.
the majority of the
Yeah.
Olympics. Yeah.
Yeah, so how do you keep up with all? Because you're not just doing soccer. You're doing basketball. You're
Right.
doing the X Games. You know,
Doing
you're
it
doing
all.
all these different sports. Like, how do you keep up with all that stuff? Do you have like 5 different screens going on? Are you?
There are five of you out here.
Right.
You have the partner, like, you taking care of these games. I'll do these
and
games.
write me a
No,
5-page
we'll
report.
Give me the spark notes. Hurry up.
That's such a good question. I don't. I do my best. And to be fair, especially when it comes to soccer, I have to be very mindful of my consumption and how much I am watching and scrolling and covering because, I mean, to be very truthful, I, at some point in my career, burnt out on a lot of other sports, covering it and being so fully immersed in it. And I'm fortunate, about 3 years in, I haven't gotten to that point with soccer. Maybe it just will never come, but I don't want that moment to ever come because it is my livelihood also at the same time. So I really try and set a boundary on how much I'm watching and consuming when I'm also doing it for work. So to be truthful, there's some weekends where I'm not watching, but I'm certainly keeping up with highlights and news stories and headlines that are happening around the game. But yeah, there's so much, especially because while most of my work is in women's soccer, like I really love the game specifically in America, that's what I really am hoping and trying to do, is help grow it here in America. So when you're looking at it on a global scale, like it's way too much for me to keep up with. So that's why I really try to find my niche on like, okay, let's grow American soccer and women's soccer. So when I'm looking at MLS and USL and NWSL, and then now we got Super League, because I also have such an affinity for USL Championship, and trying to keep up with all of this, and plus like Leagues Cup and Copa America and all these other things that are going on, which are so exciting. I just really have to pick and choose on any given week what I'm consuming and how much I'm really tapping in, and then trying to stay current with WNBA and trying to stay current with things that are going on in other sports. So I really just try to prioritize in the moment what's happening. So with the show I do with Good Follow, like we have our pre-production calls and we decide what we're going to talk about that week, and if I have to do research because maybe I was truthfully not that connected, and I'll be honest about that, then I'll do some research. But it's a work in progress on how I watch everything. But to be truthful, I have to be mindful week to week how much I'm watching soccer.
I appreciate that, and I think that that's very honest, because I don't think that anyone can really, and if there is someone out there that can take it all in and not be stressed out or like overwhelmed, that's crazy. But I think the mindfulness aspect, the boundaries, is important. And I think sometimes we forget that like we can put boundaries on things and still
you
have
cannot
access
watch
to it.
soccer. Like
Right.
you can change the channel.
Right,
which is
exactly.
crazy.
Or just like maybe not turn the TV on today, or
Yeah.
whatever the app is. So I think that's really important, and we appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, because I love it, and I don't want to ever get a point where, like, I mean, I'll be truthful. There's sometimes when I'm watching the NBA, I'm like, but I also worked in the NBA for 4 years, and so I don't ever want to get to a point where when there's a soccer game on, I'm like, no.
Right.
So I
Right.
really try to manage that.
Yeah.
No, definitely, because I stopped watching NBA because I'm a big Laker fan, and I've noticed they were ruining my day when they were losing. So
That was an emotional.
We were both on the same page on that where it's just like it was unhealthy.
Yeah.
it was bad.
I would
It was
come in
bad.
here watching the game, or like saying like, "Hey y'all, did you see the game?" They both were like, "Nah, man, freaking Lakers are pissing me off."
It really messed up my mood. Like,
Yeah.
So I'm like, I
Been
gotta start
there.
watching the NBA. I haven't really watched it. I watch here and there that 2020 bubble championship, but really since Kobe retired, I've been. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, with the Premier League starting this week, there's a lot of like memes and TikToks about like enjoying my last week in a piece before 11 people I've never met before determine my mood for the next 6 months.
Exactly.
So like, but the connection from a fan and having like being so attached to it from a fan perspective versus having it be your job and like working in the industry is a little bit different, and it gave me like a lot of respect, like doing this for some time. It gave me a lot of respect for the people that are like watching every single game, like recording, and going back, like the people in like Mina Kimes is someone on ESPN that does football, and she's like one of the most knowledgeable people, like, and you could tell that she's dialed into every single game, she's watching it, and like I could never do that.
Me neither.
Because of what you're saying. We're like, I don't want to get burnt out, and it's also why I'm thankful that we cover not necessarily the X's and O's and the strategic stuff and all the insider stuff, and that we're just talking about the vibes, talking about the culture and all that, and you still need to be watching and paying attention to all that stuff, but you might not necessarily need to be like completely like sicko dialed in, like eyes bloodshot from watching 6 hours, 7-8 hours of soccer on a given weekend, especially with all the different leagues and all the different tournaments and like just it's
physically
crazy.
impossible. I feel like it would be physically impossible.
Yeah.
And it's not. I would unsubscribe.
Yeah, we had even with the shirtless plantain show, like Tosin and Coach and all those guys, like they're on that level of sicko where they're
Like 3 TVs on,
yeah.
I'm like, dude, like why?
I don't know how they do that, and it gives me because when you listen,
they're unwell.
I
love them. They're
Shout out to you guys though.
Because they're on
Shout out to y'all.
sickle mode.
yeah, and then but when they talk about it, it's like yes, like I get my like insight and knowledge from people like them, because trying to get it on my own is so difficult. It's
not
so
for me.
difficult.
It's
so
tough. It's tough.
shout out to the people, like shout out to y'all who are doing that, because
I got
it's not
puppies.
easy.
I can't do that.
Yeah, you got dogs. Yeah.
I think on another end of it, of like the boundaries and stuff, obviously you're a woman in sports, you're a woman experiencing a growth of the sport, but you're specifically in it, involved and a part of the growth, like what has that experience been like for you, knowing that it's for the most part a male dominated world?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I've been fortunate where, at least in the soccer world, I've been met with, again, a lot of love and like someone who was and I was just thinking about this the other day, someone that was so welcoming and supportive very early on in my career was Grant Wall. And I like, even at that point, I felt a little bit like an imposter because I didn't play. I was pretty new. I didn't really understand the game, but would just send encouraging messages and like, oh, I'm so thankful for all the work you're doing and like keep up the great work. Miss him dearly and very thankful for his support. And so, for the most part, I've been very fortunate with how welcoming like media and the fans and the sport and all the executives, all the people at teams and leagues have been for me. And if anything, I think the experiences that have been the most challenging are with fans or people that are just like skeptical or weary about the longevity and the sustainability of the sport and the leagues, and like people thinking that women's sports bars aren't going to last or they're not going to make money, but like they're making millions of dollars. So if anything, it's that community of sports that for me personally has been the most challenging, but those are also the easiest to block out. Right. I'm fortunate where I haven't had experiences for the most part where like I'm not getting credentials or I'm not getting access or people are making my job difficult, which I'm very grateful for. There have been some times where I've cried at games because of certain things like access level, and I'm like, it shouldn't be this hard. But yeah, fortunately, like I've had a pretty positive experience.
That's good. The fans are ruthless.
I know.
We've
had our fair share.
We had our fair share.
Yeah. Bridget, especially because I mean, like, it's just the nature of things. Like they see
TikTok is mean.
Yeah,
TikTok is super mean. Like that's the biggest bully out there. Yes. It's insane.
Yeah. No, but going back to the access, like I went to the Galaxy versus Miami first game of the season, and then like the amount of like how hard it was to do anything, even with my media pass. Like you've been to the LAFC stadium. I've had a media pass at Portland as well. The amount of like how restricted my access was to that game. I was so upset. I think I left 15 minutes early. I didn't even see the goal, like the Inter Miami tying goal, because I was like, I'm so over this. Like I went to go say hi to a friend. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, chill. I'm just saying hi. So I was like, you know what? This is too much for me. I'm out. And I just left.
Messi brings a little bit of added security.
I've had certain experiences like that where I'm like, I'm literally doing my job.
Yeah. Right.
So times like that, I'm just like,
I don't think I was, but
Julio.
He probably wasn't though.
I probably wasn't.
Knowing him,
I'm with the people. I'm trying to go say hi to the people.
The amount of times we've been credentialed in the press box and he can't sit still for more than 5 minutes. He's like twitching, like, you know, like, yo, can we go? I was like, yo, Julio, we're here. We're covering the game.
I'm walking
like,
the stadium.
We're working here. All right, we're not
I'm
here.
I'm working the stadium. Like, how do you think about Urban Pitch? Let's talk about it over a drink.
He needs to observe the whole.
That's why I don't sit in the press box. I can't do press boxes.
Well,
it's too quiet. You have to be too
story.
Like,
I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
I can't.
They're starting to crack down on like roamers. Like
they are,
because I mean it was part of our job talking to fans and, you know, like getting their thoughts on the games and stuff, and that's what we were covering the game for, because we don't do like the traditional game write-ups and all that stuff. So we're still like in a work capacity doing that stuff, but I guess others
took advantage of it. So
yeah. So we get that.
So I think I asked for one. Like I just bought season tickets for LAFC. I was like, forget that. I just can't do it no more.
I guess we're getting to a place in soccer where people are starting to treat it like you're at an NBA game, where you can't just start roaming around anymore.
Yeah,
like
or like the NFL game.
Some places.
The photographer that he was really good friends with.
With the
cheetah.
Tyreek Hill.
He scored a touchdown. He just literally just jumped, and they denied his press for the rest of the year.
They banned him.
Banned him because he can't be celebrating
with players.
For players with touchdowns or whatever it may be. So it's getting to that point. It just breaks out the fun out of it a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially if you're covering it.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays with how invested we are, and like how big social media is a part of like making your team or your game or your organization stand out. Like, you know, like you have to get creative with it. Like being someone that's covering a game or covering for a platform, like sometimes you have to get creative with it. You have to get fun with it, and the restrictions behind the press box kind of like hold you back.
There was one time I was at a game. I'm not gonna say what game I was at.
Yeah, Galaxy.
That was not a Galaxy. Actually, no.
Come on, man.
I'm joking.
No, I don't think I've been to a Galaxy game in LA, but I was at a game and I got my credential, didn't think anything about it, put it on, walked down, just started walking to the field where I was supposed to go, and I was told you can't come here, and I'm like, what do you mean I can't come here? And they're like, you don't have field access, and I looked down at my credential and it said no field access, like I didn't even read it, but I'm like, why don't I have field access? And so unfortunately it was one of those things where I then had to start being a little aggressive and demanding, like I'm having to call people, and it was
so
ridiculous, and I was really upset about it because I'm like, I don't have to be here. But that's like the one time I've had an issue.
And then it sucks because like
I'm like, what do you mean no field access? So what am I supposed to do?
And you don't even know. So you're over here walking there like
looking stupid.
I know. And then they're looking at you like, what are you doing? Who do you think you are?
They gotta get more creative, especially with the social media content creators, because we're not traditional media. We're not there just like looking at stats the whole time. We are getting creative. So talking to the people, like interacting with people, cracking jokes, like celebrating goals. That's what the new media is doing now for and that's in every sports, like all around. And it sucks how they try to take it as an old school way, and it's not like that anymore. Nobody's going to ESPN to read that article about yesterday's game. And like,
I mean, there are people that
no, they're not. ESPN. That's why you're firing talent left and right. My bad. A little too much. All right. But yeah, like we gotta get creative. Like the league's gotta know that you gotta get creative, especially with people covering your sport in the social media aspect.
Yeah, in that particular instance, they're like, well, she can go to the press box. And my contacts were like, she has no use in the, like, she's not a journalist. She has no use in the press. We got it sorted out, but I was just like, this is
there
absurd.
should be like more details behind it.
And it's dangerous because once you start acting like that, and like, you know, do you know who I know? Like, I'm gonna call this person.
To be that person.
Then you start to be like, oh, you know, maybe that stuff kind of works. And
it
then
does.
like, we've seen it.
We got too embarrassed. We walked away. We're like, okay.
Yeah. We saw like another journalist at a soccer game, like. Not bully his way, but like, do you know who I know their way into getting what they wanted? And it was not very comfortable for
well, it was like our first year doing the pod, so it was like one of the first games we were covering. So we were just happy to be in the space, and then this guy just goes off. He's like, "Do you know how I know?" Started dropping like the owners' names. I'm like, "We don't have to cover this." I'm like, "Please don't deny us." But but
then he got what he wanted.
He got what he wanted. So it was
sometimes
great.
it works.
I did it once and it worked, and I was like, oh well. I mean, I didn't have to get to this.
Listen, we are running low on time.
All good.
But one thing that we do with our guests before we wrap things up is talk about the music that they're listening to, and get talk about the players, who they have in their rotation. So, who are some of the artists' songs that have been in your that you've been listening to lately?
Lately, I've been listening to the new Larry June.
I literally have that in my head.
Dude, every
single guest is Larry. Like Larry, come on the pod.
Dude, the album is the oh my god,
it's
what's
really
his name?
good.
The first song, the interlude with Mr.
Oh, it's at the top of my head, but I can't think of it.
It starts with an H. I need one of him in my life because like what he's saying, like his messaging, like oh my god, I forget his name.
Shout out to all you guys. Listen to Larry June's first song.
I'm listening to a lot of Larry.
Do you want some tips?
Yes. We went to his concert in Sacramento like a couple weeks ago. That was really good, right before the new album came out. So listening to a lot of Larry. Been listening to a lot of Sir. We might go to his concert tomorrow in San Diego, but my partner went the other day in Denver and said it was incredible, so he wants to go again. So I've been listening to a lot of Sir just in case we go to the concert. Been listening to the new Mustard album. I listen to a lot of hip-hop. What else have I been listening to? I've also been very much in like an R&B vibe. There's someone who's totally escaping my mind right now. It's at the top of my head. I'd have to look at my phone. But it's like right now my recent play is like very heavily Larry June and Sir.
I mean, it's not a coincidence that Larry June has been like, and we just made this joke like
simple, everything's simple.
We had Max Hornstill was here, and that was the first thing he said, and it was like,
of course he did. He's from the Bay.
That's true. But it's like Larry June, and so
I love that.
Talks about drinking coffee. It's great. Right?
Smoothies,
he's a
green
guy.
juice, and you know, and
Larry
old school
June
cars.
he gets us.
Definitely feeling that vibe.
I love that. I love that this has been a consistent thing.
Except the last guest we had,
Cole. Oh yeah,
he said
Cole
country.
Bassett is a country boy. Yeah.
I
Good
can
for
see
him.
that. I
Yeah.
can see that.
Yeah.
Colorado guy.
I can see
Yeah,
that.
you know, I mean, we haven't had, that was our first country, first. Like, we've had some like that have mentioned country, but he was like straight up, yeah, I love country. So,
That
I mean,
is
shout out
so
to country.
funny.
Country
Shout out
yeah.
Larry
I've been
June.
going back and forth with Kanye still. Old Kanye.
Old Kanye.
I sent him a random message like, all right, this album was better than this album. Then we get in a whole argument.
Yeah, you were wilding, but anyway, yeah. That the old stuff. Another thing that has been constant is, you know, as you age, like you still return to the stuff that you were listening to.
Yeah.
You know, and you're 18, 19, 20, like that kind of era, and that's the stuff that that we love. And
September 7th, they're having the R&B festival
I see.
at
You're-
Persian
you're-
Square. I'm going there.
Oh,
Yeah.
who's there?
Ashanti, Ja Rule,
Omarion.
Omarion. So
Yeah.
if I do one of these, just know what's going on.
He's gonna
Flap
come with a back brace.
Yeah, like flap it. You know what I'm saying?
Tears
Yeah.
Yeah, my knee.
Like, hey, y'all,
If I come with like, yeah, so I'm,
Mind your business.
September
Yeah.
7th?
I'm
That sounds fun.
Is that with the free concert?
yeah, no, it's at Persian Square, but it's not gonna be free. Things like right now, the tickets are like $90 or something like that.
$90 to be downtown?
Yeah, it's like a whole
I'm
festival.
about
It's
to
like,
pull up to the office.
oh yeah, your old office, yeah.
No.
But yeah, no, like me, like, I know, 90s R&B all day, every day.
Yeah, I like that.
That's a jam.
There's
That's my
someone
thing.
else. I gotta look.
Yeah.
There's
Go
someone
ahead.
else on the list.
We're
Yeah.
Dom Kennedy, September 6th.
Oh,
Dom,
Dom
yeah,
Kennedy.
Dom Kennedy.
Yeah,
Wait,
he
is
came
when?
on when I was-
September 6th, Dom Kennedy's gonna be out here.
Are we going?
If you're trying
I mean,
to
shit.
I mean,
Where?
go, at the Novo.
Oh,
in
Dom is
downtown
one of
LA.
my favorite.
Yeah, he came
Oh
on
my
when I was
God,
at the
me
gym
too.
today.
And when I first listened to Larry June, I was like,
Oh,
They have the
he's
same.
lit.
They have similar vibe for
he's
sure.
literally
Yeah, they
the Bay
definitely
Area
same.
Dom Kennedy.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Dom
Like that
Kennedy.
monotone, like
Yeah.
like low key.
Low key,
Yeah.
like
yeah.
he's talking to you, but like rapping to you,
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
singing. Yes.
I might butcher her name, but do you all know who Sinead Harnett is?
I do not.
I don't think so.
R&B singer. My partner actually found her. She kind of gives a little bit of like Snow Allegra vibes, a little
Okay.
bit.
Okay.
Beautiful voice. Been listening to her. She had a new album. It's probably been about a month or two now. Those three are the ones that are big in my recently
We'll
played.
put that on the clip. We're
Yeah.
gonna clip this and put her on the
I saw a meme that said once R&B singer started grabbing the air from the front, it died down. But I need to find a new good R&B artist. Bring me back to this.
yeah.
Really beautiful voice. Yeah, she might have a concert around. I don't know. Just look her up.
Yeah,
Definitely will.
Listen, we really appreciate you taking the time to, because I know you're very busy. You got a bunch of stuff going on, so
I'm cool.
really appreciate you taking the time to come talk with us, talk about a bunch of stuff. Before we send things off, where can we find the Good Follow Show and plug? Just give one final plug for that.
Good Follow Show is on DraftKings Network every Friday. It's also on YouTube every Friday, and you can find us on social media at Good Follow Show. And then I changed a bunch of my handles, but I'm Meg Reyes _ on Instagram, and then Megan Reyes 2 underscores on Twitter and TikTok, which I tried changing on Instagram, but it's unavailable because I was trying to be consistent.
Right, you want to have
And
consistency.
then now I'm that person.
That
that's
Meg
not
Reyes
that
attached
one
all
random.
that. You.
But thank you so much for having me. I know we've been trying to do this for a long time.
Yeah.
This was fun.
Yeah.
It was great.
Thank you for
meeting
coming.
you and
Yeah.
getting to know you more.
Thank you.
Yeah, love having conversations like this. I feel like this is like
vibes.
where we thrive the most.
Well, once I move, we'll just do it more.
Oh yeah, all right,
Hey,
let's do
More
it.
than welcome.
Yeah, for sure. All right, this has been another episode of the Urban Pitch Podcast, A Beautiful Game of Life, part of the Believe Network. For Julio Monterosa, Meg Reyes, Bridget Flores, I'm Ramsey Abushala. We'll see y'all next week.
We out.